everybody, it is Thursday. We're in the home stretch this week, aren't we? Woo, it's been a fast one. And I have not put my coffee back up here yet. Filling up the coffee thing. I just realized that. How's everybody doing today? Welcome to Daily Distinction. Got a really important topic to talk about today, and it's one we don't talk much about, but that is overselling. We're going to talk about sales today and what is overselling and why that can create problems for all of us. We tend to hear so much about how we're supposed to make sales and selling and closing and all of those kinds of things that I think are pretty outdated in today's world. We're going to talk about why and focus on that today. Hey, Dwayne, great to see you. Hope you're doing well. Hey, Donovan, I'm glad you are excited for this. Oh, no sales. I like that. And it's the name of process that you teach. I dig that. I bought the I brought the URL for No Bro Sales because I think so much of this is, oh my gosh, we see so much of these folks that are pushing and, get out there and I don't know. It drives me crazy because I don't think that it works today. Hey, Weldon, great to see you. Scott, good to see you. Adam, so glad that you're here today. Thank you for joining in. Hey, before we get into the topic, I want to remind you that time is closing up on joining us for post-pandemic events. It ends at midnight tomorrow night, Pacific time. If you'd like to be a part of it, matter of fact, we're just releasing a new program that's coming out on Monday, a new session of post-pandemic events, talking about hybrid events and how you program and work those differently than you would a typical event. And man, there's something that's incredibly important about what your perspective is about what's going to happen with meetings in the future. And that's going to determine what you say in your meeting now. And we're talking about that in post-pandemic events. So the deadline has been extended for anybody that's moving from face-to-face to this virtual connectivity. And you can save $50 with the coupon code ICONIC50. $50 off with the coupon code ICONIC50. Also, just saw a mock-up of the new website. So we're going to have more for you very soon. But stand out, earn more, the Distinction Summit. Just do a save the date. It's coming October 16th to 18th, and really hope to see all of you there at the Distinction Summit. Got some really exciting things happening there. I can't wait to tell you about. We've got to make sure they get finalized before I start talking about them. Make sense? You bet. Overselling. What is it? Have you ever been oversold? Oversold could mean a couple of things. Being oversold could mean somebody promises about the product more than it delivers to try to get you to buy it. But I typically think of overselling is when someone's a little bit too pushy, when they over and over and over try to get you to buy what they are doing, right? So, hey, Brian, good to see you. Always great to have you here. Hey, Janice, I've been worried about you. I know the bad weather in Houston, so hope everything is okay with you there. And thank you for sharing, Weldon. Oh, thank you very much, Darcy. I appreciate that. I'm really grateful that you say that, and I hope you like this next one. We just got it done on hybrid events, so you'll have it very shortly. Yeah, and it does. It kind of does, doesn't it, Brian? It goes hand in hand with Ken's about how you do live streaming, and this talks about what you do with virtual events. So, have you been a victim of overselling? A salesperson that's been too pushy? People that promise more about their products and what it can deliver? I think we, at some point, all of us have encountered that. But I think part of what happens and what's happening now is when you are in a changing or challenging time. And let's face it, I mean, depending on what industry you're in, the pandemic may have not damaged your business at all. I mean, if I was a liquor salesperson, I think business would be pretty good right about now, right? I mean, let's face it, the liquor stores aren't doing too badly right now. If you were a professional speaker, it is certainly a time of great challenge because there aren't any meetings to speak to other than virtual ones. So it's really critical that we understand that what might be a time where things are normal to some is a time of devastation to others. But anytime you face that, it seems like a result is that people get more aggressive because of their desperation. They push a little bit harder. There is a company that we did business with 5 years ago, I'm guessing. And I, in the last 2 days, have received 7 emails from them asking if I could use their services again. Now, my guess is, I'm not certain, my guess is they are experiencing a challenging time. And so some boss somewhere said, well, let's contact our previous clients and see what they're doing. And it wasn't only that they contacted me to reach out, there were 2 things that were very noticeable. First of all of those messages in such a short period of time kind of reeks of desperation. But the other thing is, I wouldn't mind if they'd contacted me again. Heck, I'm a former customer. But what got me is they didn't contact me in the 5 years since we stopped doing business together until this week. And then it's overwhelming in terms of how much contact they're making. And I wrote an email long before we went on here and just said, please stay in touch. I have no need right now, but please stay in touch. And I wish you would have continued that, while we were talking. So it's that to me is overselling. And I know that they didn't want to create in the mind of the customer a sense of desperation. Yet that's exactly what it did when I hear from you that many times in such a short period of time. And the last of the couple of emails were about how they had a special offer. If I just talked to them, there's a special offer. And that's where the challenge comes from, I think. Brian, overselling to me, in my experience, is the character of the person. Yeah, that has so much a part of it, right? And this is weird, but that desperation creates questions about integrity, whether we like it or not, right? When I'm getting that many emails from you and promises of special deals and this, that, and the other, it makes me wonder, accurately or not. So here's the point. I think that overly aggressive sales tactics cost you sales. I think overly aggressive sales tactics end up costing you sales. Now, don't get me wrong. We don't want you to not talk to us either, right? Ignoring us loses sales. And as we've said about so many things, it's a fine line between the two. But I truly believe that over aggressive tactics and aggressive closing tactics and all of that loses sales. That we have to be respectful of our customer. And Janice, great point. If it smells desperate, it is. When it smells desperate, it is. Hey, Janice, glad to know that you didn't get the bad weather. When I was looking at it one time, they were saying that. So I hadn't seen it here recently, but it's wobbling up the border. Oh, in danger from your hurricane snacks. I love that. Brian, when they message you, are they messages of proof, narrative, and you sell yourself because the value is present and abundant? Yeah, right. Exactly. What they're emailing is, we haven't talked to you for 5 years, but now we'd really love to have you back. And here's your special deal. Oh, by the way, very special deal, really special deal. The deals keep getting specialer and specialer by the moment, which doesn't create what they want. And that overly aggressive tactic now is called into play. Should I be their customer in the future? Not only that I don't need it now, but I don't know if I need it in the future either. So overly aggressive sales tactics lose you sales. Here's something we've talked about before, but I think it fits in with this as well. I keep hearing from salespeople, well, you don't understand. It's a numbers game. I've had people tell me this on LinkedIn. Scott, you don't understand. It's a numbers game. If I get this many responses to 1,000, if you extrapolate that to 100,000, look how many more responses I'm going to get. Hey, I ain't arguing with that. What I'm saying is you don't know all the numbers. How many people are blocking you? How many people are so frustrated by your aggressive tactics that they never want to talk to you again? I blocked somebody on LinkedIn this morning because it was the 4th time in 5 days they sent me something saying, hey, would you like to write a book? Could a book be in your future? Well, yeah, a book is in my future, and there are several back here that's in my past. And they obviously knew nothing about me, but they just kept, discover the 8 secrets to getting your first 1,000 readers. Well, okay. I got a lot more than that, and there weren't any secrets to it. It was just hard work, right? I mean, it just kills me how And so they don't know the numbers. They'll never get a chance to sell me anything in the future because I blocked them now. So if they don't know that, now I'm not saying that means they should stop doing their program. What it means is they can't evaluate the program if they don't have all the information. The example you may have heard me use before is, you could come up with a vaccine for the virus, and you could find out the vaccine worked. 90% of the people take the vaccine, don't get the virus. But if you also find out that half the people that get the vaccine have a heart attack, you probably aren't going to use the vaccine. You need to know all those numbers. Yet we see so many people that say sales is a numbers game. And it's the dumbest thing ever because they don't know all the numbers. You got to know all the numbers. Charles, yes, I was hoping that you didn't realize it was you. That there's no way that Charles Coachman is getting blocked. That's for sure. Janice, it's a hot button for me. I'm telling you. My pal Larry Wingett and I play a game. You click the button that says, "Okay, they're a friend." You've accepted them as a connection on LinkedIn. And you just kind of sit there, go 1001, 1002, until the sales pitch comes on. Right? It's just, it's LinkedIn is almost it's not there yet, but it's getting to the point of such frustration that I think they're ripe to be knocked off. For some other thing to come along, and people think, "Oh, that won't happen." Well, they didn't think Snapchat was going to get knocked off either, but Instagram has certainly damaged it, and TikTok has certainly done that as well. So it's all of that. Thanks, Mark. I appreciate it. Weldon, when are we going to do Zoom meetings on-site vendors? Yeah, I think that's going to be. I think it's already happening in some businesses. I've talked to folks in the buildings industry who now is taking their iPhone and doing inspections by FaceTime. I mean, things we would never have thought of before. I think the sales process, I think you're exactly right. The sales process has to change because how we sell is changing. So what I'd like to suggest, and I think all of us are involved in sales one way or the other. All of us are involved in sales one way or another. So I want to suggest 3 different ways that we focus, and how we focus is going to make such an important difference. Here's number 1. Focus on attraction, not coercion. We need to be studying less how to quote unquote close a deal and focus more on being more attractive to prospective customers and customers. It kind of goes back to what Jim Rohn said about success is something you attract, not something you pursue. Isn't that a profound statement? Success is something you attract, not something you pursue. You attract success by becoming more attractive. Now, he wasn't talking about, having a facelift or, hair transplant or whatever. That's not what he meant by attractive. He meant it, and this is a part of how profound Jim Rohn was. He meant it as you have to have something that pulls people toward you. If you don't have that, then now you're relying on coercion. You're relying on having these structured closes that in fact, even though I taught this years and years ago, here's the 18 techniques of closing the sale and all that. And why I really stopped doing it was the longer I get into it, the more I realized what you're really teaching is manipulation. It's not right. Well, and yeah, people are going to leave LinkedIn. Yeah. Here, let me give you an example, right? Let me give you an example of this. I got a thing saying, would you like more customers for your business? What a stupid opening line. Would you like more customers for your business? Oh, I don't know. Maybe. Seriously? You're seriously asking that's your opening line? No, I don't want more customers. Of course, everybody does. So what we need to be asking is, how would you like to be more attractive to the customers that you would desire having? Oh, okay, tell me. I do now. That's interesting. Now you've got me. You're not manipulating me. You're attracting me. So focus focus on attraction, not on manipulation, not on coercion. There's a couple ways you can teach sales, and when you teach it as, okay, here's the opening, and here's how much you, and then here's this, and then here's that. Here's how you handle objections. Here's how you here's the Ben Franklin close. Here's the choice close. Here's the, all of that. And it eliminates the interplay, the sincere connectivity that is so important. Mark says we get to innovate our sales approach. If everybody's doing it, and there's the key with distinction, Mark. I agree completely, right? I mean, if everybody is using that approach, then maybe that means we ought to try something else. Yes, you're exactly right. Hey, here's my friend Jerry. You got to present what the customer feels and envisions is attractive. And and there's an important point, Jerry. What the customer feels is attractive may not be our vision of attractiveness. Requires the seller to think as the customer, not as the person selling. Yes, absolutely. Right? I mean, who was it that said, there's a comedian that used to say, my grandpa told me something I've never forgotten. If every man was exactly alike, they'd all want to marry your grandma. and we're different. I love that line, but it's true. If everybody else is doing it, I mean, it's just focus on how do you get more attractive? How do you get more appealing? That's part of what we have to examine, but so few companies do. They think if we sell harder, we'll make more sales. We pressure more, close more, get more aggressive, cut down the time, make more calls, all of that. Yeah, look at that. No new clients for me, please. You bet, Charles. When authenticity and trust is lost forever by this kind of behavior. Yes, I think you're exactly right, Brian. That's what happens when you focus on coercion, not attraction. What we got to do is focus on attracting, which, by the way, requires us to think about who is our ideal customer and how do we attract them? Because if you're trying to be all things to all people, the chances are pretty strong you're the preference of none. So who do we need to be attracting? Here's the next thing, and it sounds so hokey, but it is so true, and that is focus on helping, not selling. Focus on how do we help? How do we help our customers? How do we fill their needs? Donovan makes a great point here. People don't need a salesperson in this age. They need someone they can buy from when they're ready and someone that guides them through the process. They want their hand held through the process. You're exactly right, Donovan. How do we help them? And that's what holding your hand through the process means. It's how do we help them? How do we assist them? I think customers, and we recently did a survey we're going to be talking about later on. We recently did a survey, and part of what we found is price was most important to customers who were making less than $25,000 a year. I get that, right? I mean, their main choice is going to be based on how much does it cost. But for people who made over $25,000 a year, the most important aspect was this combination of, depending on your generation, and your generation kind of determined not what you wanted, but really how you described it. What we want is friendly, and we want assistance. We want to know you're going to be there to back us up. And if you think about it, and I don't mean this to be negative towards any single profession, but if you think about it, isn't that kind of why used car salespeople got such a bad rep? Is it not only were they trying to coerce you into buying and sell you the car, they also didn't do much to back it up once the sale had been made. We criticize that new car salesperson many times for being a stereotypical hokey example of what sales shouldn't be. But we often fail to recognize that it is the lack of follow-up and the lack of service after the sale, the lack of help, that created that very negative perspective, that very negative impression. That and bad plaid jackets. Yes, exactly right. Psychologically, it makes it difficult for us to be authentic, be perceived that way because the shell is created is due to coercion. And Brian, you're right. I mean, what happens is, and it's not fair. I'm not saying it's fair, but it's not fair, but it's reality, is that we go into every situation and we are cloaked in our baggage of the previous experiences that we've had. And if our previous experience with people in your business or my business or whatever we're talking to at that particular point has been negative, we come in with our armor on and our defenses up because we think it's gonna get going that way again. Janice, my wife and I had that experience a while back too, where we go to a dealership and it was her car. She was paying for it. It's going to be her car. She was going to be driving it. I mean, I'm just there, right? And we couldn't get the salesperson to look at her. They were selling me the car and then acting like, and you little lady, you'll get to ride in this vehicle. It was so offensive that we left. I mean, no, we're fine. We're done. And we left. And we went to another dealer of that exact same car, basically bought the exact same model from a woman sales professional who talked directly to her and realized it was her purchase decision. And I was just the supportive spouse along there. And I'm telling you, it is ridiculous sometimes in the way that, whether we're talking about cars or whatever it is that get sold to women. And yeah, it is a reality out there, isn't it, Brian? So what we have to do is focus on helping, not on selling. Here's the third one. We need to be focusing on long-term value, not short-term transactions. Now, look, I realize that in this difficult time, if you don't make some sales, your business might close, right? If you don't find ways to keep your business going, you're in trouble. I get it. Me too. That's where we are, right? But the way that you get there is to focus on long-term value, because that's part of what I want to perceive as a customer, even in a transaction. I mean, part of the aspect that sold us on that car that we bought was the way that the saleswoman told us about how they stood behind the product and how great the service department is. And she took us over and showed us the service department before she tried to close us on that particular car, because and they kept calling it the family. We'd love to have you join the family. That we, loaner went through all this. Now, the other salesperson could have said exactly the same thing, but she made it feel like she was looking at long-term value. Long-term value is the key. Yeah, if you're going to solve the buyer's problem, you better be talking to the decision maker. You're exactly right, Ellen, and that was the problem. I mean, Tammy was going to decide what Tammy was going to drive, and they talking to me wasn't going to get her in the car. My late wife Sherry was sales was pretty much her job, Weldon, and she's one of the best that I ever saw, because it's important. And if you are focusing on and talking with them in a manner that creates loyalty, there you go. You're doing it right. That's what it's all about. Yeah, Janice, she was terrific. She was absolutely terrific. And Ernest, that's an excused absence if you're helping people and getting paid. That's the key, my friend. That's great. And there is how a car dealership in Indianapolis lost our business. I've told the story before, but they changed general managers at the dealership, and we were there. And I bought goodness knows how many cars at that dealership. It's about the only car the only brand of car that we bought the whole time that we were there. And so I go in and they make this ridiculous low ball offer on my trade of the car that they'd sold me earlier. I was like, I mean, we've got more information as customers than ever before. We've got great access to information. And I'm like, I'm a good customer. Why are you doing this? So, they take me back to talk to the manager after the salesperson made like 3 trips to talk to the manager. Finally, I said, rather than you going back there and then come back translating, why don't you let me talk to the manager? After all I've spent here, I think I asked him the question, what is my lifetime value to this dealership? And he had absolutely no idea. Just totally went over his head. I said, you don't know the lifetime value. So you can't really determine which of your customers are your best customers and have purchased the most. Well, he said, what we're here to do is to make certain that you buy a car from us. No, no. What you're here to do is to be of such service to me and help me that what has to happen is that I continue to be a customer of yours. That I continue to be a part of, and I didn't use the word, but that's what struck me about the saleswoman that we talked to. I was mentioning we just talked to. It, I feel like a part of the family. You know, that I'm part of the family of people that buy here and service here and sell here. And instead, they made me feel like a transaction. After so many transactions, and that I'll never buy another car there again. I don't care if I move back to Indianapolis. I don't care if they're the only dealership in town. I'm not buying it. I wouldn't buy that brand again if I had to buy it from them. Why? Because focusing on short-term transactions meant not only did they end the long-term relationship, they didn't even get that sale, which is part of what we need to keep our eye on. Yeah, I've read about him, Ernest. I have read about him and his sales success. I look forward to learning more. He sells something like 100 cars a month, right? Which is amazing. Hey, Jeff, great to see you. Glad you're doing well. So Charles says some don't have that perspective. Charles, I think a lot don't have that perspective, right? A lot don't have that perspective. So to wrap it up, 3 things I want to suggest that we focus on. If you want to increase sales, it's not focusing on these gimmicks or these techniques or that kind of thing. It's number one, focusing on how do I become more attractive to customers? What can I do that attracts customers to me rather than force me to be in constant hunt and pursuit? You know, even the company I was talking about earlier that hadn't contacted me for 5 years. Now that they're contacting me, it seems like pursuit. It seems like coercion, where if they just stayed in touch after we stopped doing business together, but just, hey, how you doing? Reaching out, staying in touch over that period of time. Now I'd be attracted to do business because I feel like they're more invested in what we're trying to do here. Does that make sense? So if you aren't in touch with past customers, now's a great time to be doing it. Not to try to sell them anything, but to just be in touch, because we are more attracted to organizations and individuals who maintain contact. Second, how can we help them? Because if you can answer that first, they'll buy your product. How do we help solve their problem? How do we help fill their need? How do we help get them what they want? How do we do those things? Because if we focus on delivering that, then the sales are gonna be just fine. And third, how do we focus on what the long-term value is, not just this immediate short-term transaction? Yeah, with so many, it's meeting the quota. How many did you get this month? Right? And don't get me started. I've worked in helping those car dealerships where you go in and everybody's standing around the coffee pot telling stories about what happened that weekend. You can't get anybody to wait on you, and then they complain and moan because they weren't enough customers, when they could be spending their time just following up on the people that bought a car from them 3 years ago. One of the best sales professionals, I've talked about him a lot. He was at Dreyer and Reinbold BMW in Indianapolis, and I got this anniversary card from him. And I opened it up, and I thought, oh, Carl's made a mistake because it's not our anniversary. And I said, Carl, it's not my anniversary. You know what? He said, no, it is. It's the anniversary when you bought your first car from me 10 years ago. Whew, pretty cool. Stayed in touch. We bought more cars. I'm not just talking about selling cars. It's whatever that we have. Yeah, I know. That's great. He has a relationship with people and works hard to take care of. There you go. That's the essence of all of it, isn't it, Ernest? Hey, Tim Gillette, great to see you. Hey, I'm just glad that you're here. Thank you for being here. Thanks for that. Yeah, Sherry, you're a great example of it. I know that from being your customer. She's the family florist at the birth and birthdays and proms and weddings and even their passing. And you've been there. Let's see. Well, except for birth of babies, I think you've been there for all of mine. So there's a great example of the long-term value. So focus on those 3 things. Your business is going to get better regardless of what the time is that you have to confront. Hey, thanks for sharing. Thanks for being a part of this every day. Gosh, I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. My favorite half hour of the day. I'm really glad you're here. I look forward to talking to you again tomorrow on the next Daily Distinction.